Hola people, I'm a software engineering student working as a personal trainer and trying to make it before my university degree ends. What the hell is vibe coding? Genuinely, I feel like everything this week has been all about that. Somehow, we always have to put a label on something in tech. There's nothing that can just be a thing. It has to be a whole category of people that they're just doing this task. Somehow now everything is vibe coding and MCPs. Like if it's now the new golden rush and everyone's trying to build NCPs, trying to build cursor rules, trying to reinvent the wheel. Obviously, AI coding has gotten really good, and honestly, I use AI for pretty much 90% of my coding. You can make the argument that it's a good or a bad thing, but it definitely works. I think that particularly for product people, this is a good thing. But somehow, why does everyone get so hyped about all of these fancy topics and trends that they just seem that that's the next shiny thing in tech? There's always gonna be a thing that's gonna be better. I remember the first time that I built my first React Native app, we were using Firebase and everyone was hyped about Supabase. Now after Supabase, now everyone's talking about how Vercel is too expensive, so it's better if you host it on your own. All of these things, all of these trends that they're always like a more optimal way of doing something, they just end up distracting you about the actual thing that you need to do. This is something that happens to me so much. Right now I'm doing the architecture of the latest app that I just previously launched, that I'm in the beta right now, and I have some users trying out the app. I was quite bummed down because one of the libraries that I was using is shutting down, and in case you haven't heard of it, it's FFmpeg, which if you haven't heard of it, you probably haven't done something with media on coding, but that library was pretty much used on every project that you've ever known somehow using media. I was lucky enough that one of the main libraries, it switched from using FFmpeg for React Native to actual native code, so I was blessed by that, but I had to kill a feature from my app, at least delay it up until I can learn how to write the native code to use AV Foundation from Swift and from Apple, and how to connect it with React Native. I think that that's something that I'm lacking in my technical skills. I need to learn how to start writing native code, because despite that I learned React Native, for me to launch things at the same time in Android and iOS, I think that it's not the most smart thing to do, especially in the beginning, because you can't really have really good two apps when you're a solo developer and you are pretty much a junior engineer like I am. And I know that it doesn't make any sense when statistically iOS users tend to pay much more than Android users, and that's pretty much my aim. That's what this whole channel is about, for me to make money on my own before university ends. Today has been a very productive day for me in terms of features. I managed to implement a good chunk of features into my app. Now users can have the leaf stats to be draggable, so you can move them around the screen. You can adjust the font, you can adjust the color of the font, you can adjust the color of the background, and now the compression is different because I was using also the compression from FFmpeg, and now I'm using another library called React Native Compression that uses the same compression of WhatsApp. That way I'm not so dependable on FFmpeg. I'm sadly gonna have to kill the feature of having to save that video with the editing stats into the video, but I'm going to write some native code to do that. I'm just not gonna do it right now. My long-term plan for this app is to build it into somehow like when you have comments on your Google Docs where you collaborate with other people comment on certain sentences of the document, and then you can read those comments. I want to build it something like that so that clients can send it to their coach, and coach can comment inside specific moments of the timeline on the video, and they can read through that. Kind of like a Loom, but way more optimized for lifting technique. My plan was to build it much later on and having people to store that information in their own photo libraries for now, but since I can't have those videos, that's now what I'm going to be doing, is that I want to store those videos inside the app, and I have to start doing the boring stuff. The same thing that always happens to me. I just try to finish a project, I end up doing 85% of the project, and I never do authentication, payments, all of those things. And it's the same thing that I talked in previous videos. It's so tempting to not wanting to take that first bite on actually trying, because you lose that momentum of being the first outlier in something. I think it's just an innate nature to want to be someone different, that someone that does it differently, that is an outlier, is completely different to everyone else, a genius, whatever you want to call it. And the moment that I start monetizing a project and no one shows up, then I just close that opportunity. But I know that once after I face that properly, I can just move on, because you know I'm gonna self-deprecate and be like, oh, I can't believe that no one bought my project. I thought that if I build it, no, everyone was gonna show up. And I know that the world doesn't work like that. It might do, who knows? But I gotta finish this thing soon. I might even launch it on Product Hunt. I don't know. I feel like there's been a lot of mixed feelings about Product Hunt because it's not so innovative anymore, but at the same time, I mean, I got nothing to lose. It's not like I have to pay $1,000 just to put it there. So I think that the next step is just to build up all of the boring stuff and then actually ship the thing. Now, regarding to my web application of scraping with Manga, I really also happy about that. Again, I just have to do the boring stuff. But the problem with that project is that all of the code that I had, I wrote it on Python, because when I started writing that code, I still really didn't understood how APIs work. So I thought that I just had to use certain languages for certain APIs. I still don't quite super understand it, but I know that just because you have an SDK of a language, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't interact with the API. So now I understand it a little bit better. But initially I was writing it in Python, and the problem is that the workflow of how the code worked depended a lot on local things that were happening on the machine. So there was creation of folders, there was filtering through how the titles of the mangas were created, all of these things that require access to the desktop. That simply doesn't happen when you have a web application. So I moved everything to be using Supabase, and it's using Supabase storage to, I think it's actually quite smart. So what it does is that it scrapes any website that you have that has a compilation of mangas. You know those like read One Piece for free online. It scrapes all of that list of chapters, it grabs the links of the images of all of the chapters so that then you can create a specific PDF. Because the whole idea is that I don't like using electronics in bed except for the Kindle. And if I have to go, let's say 1,000 different, because I want to catch up with One Piece, I'm gonna spend hours actually doing that. And I don't want to do that. So I just have to put that link. It's going to scrape all of those links, create me a JSON database, and from that JSON database, then I'm going to download all of those images into Supabase. Then from Supabase, I'm going to convert all of those images into a PDF depending on how many chapters does the user want. Let's say that you want to read 50 chapters in one go. You create that into a single PDF, and then it compresses it. You can easily have more than 2-3 gigabytes if you compile quite a lot of chapters on one manga. So I wanted to find a compression just to optimize it a little bit more, because Kindles don't really have such a big storage capacity. So after that PDF is created, I'm using the I Love PDF API to compress the PDF, which is the only one that I can find, and it honestly works quite well. And then after that, it lets you download it, but it's not that it lets you download it, it's that you can send it directly to your Kindle via an email. So the workflow is scrape the website with all of the manga, compile it into a PDF, compress that PDF, send it directly to your Kindle via email. And honestly, I've been testing it with my own stuff, and it makes it so much easier because it's just smooth. You don't really have to do any particular, oh, let me do download this volume and then grab this and then grab that. No, it's just super smooth because you have the database, you say how many chapters you want, you select them, and then you ship it. But again, I have to do all the boring stuff now. I have to do all the authentication, security, testing, things like that. It's pretty much done though, so I'm actually quite excited. I feel like I'm just delaying the undelayable, if that makes sense, or the things that I know I need to do. Like I said, because I'm afraid of failing and I just need to overcome that. I think that I'm close though. I'm actually happy with myself because things are getting a little bit smoother. And I think it's easy for me to hit these mental walls of why am I doing this, or why am I actually building the thing that I don't know if people are going to want. I know that you have to build it because people need to want to have it before you actually build it, so that you don't waste time, and you have to optimize that so that you don't waste time building something that people don't want. But in all honesty, when I built my first application, it made me so much better developer that when I wanted to have another idea, it was just way faster to actually build it. I'm a big believer that you have to take small increments one step at a time and improving 1% every day. And I gotta say, myself from 2 or 3 years ago is completely different in software engineering knowledge than who I am today. I wouldn't believe the amount of things that I built right now. Even for myself, even for uni, things that matter to me that they might not change the world, but they have made me a much better developer. And it's one of those that you only need one shot of being right in order for all of those things to come into place. One of my favorite quotes from Steve Jobs is the one of, you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards. I can't really understand why or what's the meaning of the things that I'm doing right now, but I know that to some degree, one brick at a time, they're building me into not only the developer that I want to be, but maybe the entrepreneur, the man, the person that I want to be, and the legacy that I want to live in the world. I think it has to be a combination of obviously you not wasting time into building crazy things, but at the same time, building's supposed to be fun, goddammit. Also, that's why you also have AI. It's not like you have to build every technology in software engineering from scratch. There's now so many libraries, and there's already so many things that you can build upon, and we're to some degree standing in the shoulder of giants, and we just have to build these amazing tools that even if they're for yourself, they might solve some issues for someone else, or you might just do it because it's fun. It doesn't have to be this deep. You can just build things instead of trying to find the most optimal path to things. Don't try to just find the most optimal way of creating something, or the most optimal way of you making money, or finding your purpose. You only find out about these things by trying. And I think that one of the things that I've noticed the most is that I'm actually enjoying trying. I know that obviously I'm human. I have times that I'm like, oh, I hate my life, this sucks, I really don't want to move, I don't want to work, I don't want to do anything, this is really hard. As long as the majority of the days are not like that, you're probably on the right track. You also don't want to just be mindlessly going through life. I think that I'd rather have negative emotions some days than having this flat line of emotions and being emotionless on my day-to-day. Super idealistic, but I think that you have to be excited about what you're doing every day. This doesn't mean that it has to be like when you're going and see a movie and the protagonist is there looking like a moron, like, oh wow, I'm so happy to be alive. That doesn't happen. It's just a movie. It's a bit less sexy than that. But you should have that internalized emotion. Don't get caught up on optimizing everything, especially as a software developer, that we're just wanting to always do things more efficiently. There's not really an efficient way of figuring things out without having to make mistakes along the way. It's like every meme that you see that is always like the beginning of the gospel, and then you have all the middle ground, all of these optimizations, all of these crazy things, and then you have the other curve, like the other end, that is usually the same response, but in completely different life stages. So honestly, just have fun programming. I know it's hard, you're gonna hit walls, it's gonna suck, you're gonna want to punch the monitor, but you gotta have fun with it. You can't just code because you wanna make money, or you can't just code because your brain tells you to. I think that just because something sucks in the moment, that doesn't mean that you're not gonna have fun in the future. I think that there is something that I like from an anime called Haikyuu, where one of the characters was saying and was explaining that I think he was the ace of his team, and he was explaining how it's not like he disliked volleyball, but he also wasn't enjoying it, and he only started to enjoying it after he spent years practicing, and he started to get really good, like national level good, and he realized how freaking fulfilling it was to actually crush your opponents. In this analogy, you can maybe have another opponents, or you can maybe characterize your opponents as in like, oh, I have this wall in my life, I'm gonna give it a personality, I'm gonna try to beat it. Or you can also think that that version of yourself is your opponent, but you gotta be excited about crushing that version. You gotta be excited about crushing something, and you also have to have the urgency to actually overcome this necessity, because this fire that you need to have inside of you is the one that is going to stick with you through the whole time. What I don't recommend you to do, please, at the end, I know that is your life, you can do whatever the hell you want, I'm just a stranger on the internet, but for the love of God, don't give up on what you're doing just because it's tough. Even if no one else believes in you, even if no one thinks that you're gonna make it, you have to be delusional enough. Keep trying things on your own. This doesn't mean don't pivot, this doesn't mean don't change things, it just means don't lose the hope that one day you're going to become the person that you're going to be. But don't think that that's gonna happen from one day to another. Some people take years, some people take decades. I don't really care about the time frame that it takes me to accomplish the things that I want to accomplish, because I know that every day I'm taking decisions that make me proud of myself when I look in the mirror, and I know that I'm improving myself one step at a time. Could it be faster? Yes. Could it be slower? Definitely, because I am trying to have that urgency, but everyone has a different set of circumstances that they need to face in life, because we all got dealt with different cards. But never ever give up.